Joining us this morning is local author Bryan Powell, who has just released his most recent book, but that tops a very long list of books. Good morning, Bryan. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me here.
All right, so before we dive into these great titles, tell me a little bit about yourself and what got you into writing.
A lot of times people ask me, when did you start writing? And jokingly I say in the first grade. I started with A.
Right.
But since then, I've been writing music, and I've been writing books for about, music for about 20 some odd years, and books for about 8 years. I grew up along the Delaware River, and there was an airport, and there was a railroad track, and I had this wanderlust. So my creative mind kicked in, and I just wondered, where are all these people coming from, going to? So it was an outgrowth of my upbringing, you might say.
And that makes complete sense. All right, so now you classify yourself as Christian fiction, correct?
That's correct.
But you dabble in a lot of genres, from mystery, on up. You brought some of your titles with you. Kind of talk us through the gamut that you enjoy.
Well, when I say Christian fictions, people look at me and say that's kind of like military intelligence or sweet and sour pork. How do you get the two together? But in reality, throughout the Bible, there are lots of illustrations where a parable or a story has been told that had a point.
Right.
And so my books are designed to have a point. They have a purpose. And they are written from a Christian point of view as compared to the dystopic where we're going to blow ourselves up in 25 years or whatever. And so I use my books as vehicles to communicate truth. In this book right here, Sisters of the Veil, my character is a black man, a former Marine turned architect, and his company gets a contract to build the second largest mosque in Michigan. So I'm dealing with prejudice, I'm dealing with racism, I'm dealing with a culture that we're not familiar with, and how do you interact with people that are different from you? And so that's in a nutshell. This one here simply asks the question, what if? What if the wise men of Bethlehem ran across the witch of Endor? What would happen? And as a result, we've got a Christian fantasy. This one would be a contemporary thriller, but this one would be a fantasy series. And I pull the curtain back and then let you see what's going on the other side of our reality, the angelic world, what's happening in the warfare that's going all around us. And
your most recent title is Loving Miss Bessie. So
Loving
tell us
Miss
what we can expect with this.
Well, Miss Bessie, it was actually just kind of an outgrowth of my creative being, you might say. I drove by an old house at one time, and I thought, what was it like, and who was the last resident? And as a result, Miss Bessie came to mind. She's an old, crotchety woman, kind of a cross between Granny Clampett and Aunt Bee.
Okay.
And she's very opinionated, but she has some issues too. She chews tobacco and she has a still. And so when a young preacher comes to town to take over her church, she took him under her wing and tries to explain how things work.
Okay.
And so it was a learning curve for him and for her as well.
Sounds like a beautiful relationship developed, however, a great friendship.
Exactly
I
right.
don't want to give away anything else, but
Yes.
how can we find this book along with your other ones?
Well, these books are all listed with Amazon, of course, and Goodreads, Good Books, Google Books. You can get them at Barnes & Noble. You can get it at Books A Million upon request. I do signing events at all of these places, and bookstores and festivals everywhere. My website, also Author Bryan Powell. My email address is authorbryanpowell@gmail.com, but it's also a WordPress, so we'll have that as a graphic, and you can find it.
And I was going to say, we can always visit you online to find a full list of your titles, correct?
Yes, my catalog is there as well.
All right, and you also are on Facebook too, so we can always follow you there.
Yes, that's correct.
All right, well, Bryan, thanks so much for joining us. Thanks for introducing us to these titles. I look forward to reading Loving Miss Bessie.
Thank you so much. Appreciate it.